I spent this week testing 5 different washes to test which of those is the best. Whilst all 5 of the washes have their use cases, most of you spend 2 to 4 times more than you need to, and I'm about to prove it. I tested 5 different kinds of washes. I tested Citadel's Nuln Oil, I tested Citadel's Wildwood contrast paint, thinned down with the contrast medium. I tried AK's ABT sepia oil paint. I tried Streaking Grime by AK. And I also tried Villainy Ink's Dystopian Brown. Now, we're not focused on the colours, we're just focused on the effect. I bought all of these washes myself, so no sponsors, no bias. Nonetheless, you can find the links to all of them down in the description. I 3D printed 5 different paint swatches with 5 different base colours and then put all the different washes on each of them. I did apply a gloss varnish to 3 out of the 5, but that's just because it makes it a bit easier for cleaning up any oils and enamels. It's not necessary whatsoever. Now, when it comes to washes, there's lots of different techniques as to how you can apply them. In this case, I just applied them all with a brush, just sort of splashed it over the surface. If there was any particularly excessive pools of paint for the Nuln Oil or the Wildwood, then I sort of soaked them up, but otherwise it's just splashed on. In the future I might do some sort of pin washes, some more advanced techniques. For this particular video we're just focusing on splashing it on, and then for the oils and enamels just wiping that very top surface layer off. I rated each of the washes on 5 different key areas. The first of those areas is tinting strength. Now, that just means how much did the wash colour the surface of the swatch. Because this is something that depends on what you're painting, how you're painting it, how you want the end result to look, I didn't include tinting in the overall results. With tinting, we're going to go from lowest to highest in terms of how strong the tinting effect was. So, first of all is Villainy Ink. Now, very much so, when I wiped it over, all the colour came away. It only left the ink in the deepest recesses. Second of all was the oil paint. After that was the Streaking Grime. After that was the Nuln Oil. And then obviously at the very highest tinted level was the contrast paint. Now this makes a lot of sense. That's literally what contrast paints are made for. Nuln Oil obviously, it doesn't get a wipe at the end, so it makes sense as well. But the other 3 were quite interesting as to the varying levels of how much it tinted the surface. The second category that I graded the washes on was deep recesses. So this is just how well did each of the washes colour the deepest recesses. In this case, the deepest recesses need a lot of staying power, and a thicker formula actually works so much better. So if you are doing a deeper recess, make your paints a little bit thicker. The very best was Villainy Ink. Now this settled very nicely into the deepest recesses. So Villainy Ink came first, after that were the ABT oil paints, after that's the Streaking Grime. Both Nuln Oil and Wildwood did struggle a little bit with the deepest recesses, which was a little bit surprising to me. The next category is in the shallow recesses. So this sort of flips the script in that you can see from before the Nuln Oil, the Wildwood, they do a great job of colouring in those sort of shallow recesses as compared to the rest of them. Now the reason for this is that when I wiped away the colour from the surfaces of the enamels and oils, that's taken away a lot of the sort of shallower recessed paints. Now you could probably get better results with the oil and enamel by either being really gentle with your removal of the paint, or by being very precise and doing a little pin wash in those shallower recesses. But we'll delve further into pin washes in a future video. You can see with the Wildwood and the Nuln Oil that the details on the lips, for instance, are much more pronounced, much more visible, whereas you can see on the Villainy Ink, there's no detail there at all. It's all been wiped away. So the next category is safety. So both Nuln Oil and Wildwood are acrylic paints, so they're merely, plastic particles in a water-based formula. The other products have varying degrees of different chemicals that are toxic. At the top of the list in terms of safety are the Nuln Oil and the Wildwood. Next of all it comes the oil paint. It's toxic, but it's less toxic than the rest of them. After that comes the Villainy Ink. Now, it does advertise online that it is less toxic. I couldn't find any direct evidence that it is less toxic, but just taking them on their word, I've put it just before the Streak and Grime in last, as it is a more traditional enamel paint. Now, the reason why some of them are more toxic than others is because they have different amounts of volatile organic compounds, and they also release them at different rates as well. So the amount of time that you can be exposed to each of them is different. In any case, whether you're doing oils or enamels, or even doing acrylics, really you want to have some ventilation. You want to have a lot of ventilation for enamels especially. The last category is price. So a lot of you are quite budget conscious. At the very top of the list is the oil paint at 11 pence per milliliter. Now that's including thinning it down 1 to 5 with sans odor, but if you use other mineral thinners it can be a lot cheaper, but at the cost of it being more toxic. Second on the list is Streak and Grime at 13 pence per milliliter. Now that's already mixed for you, so you don't need to do any mixing apart from just that little shake before you use it. Wildwood, thinned down 1 to 1 with contrast medium, is technically next in the list, shortly followed by Nuln Oil, so that's 20 pence per milliliter for the Wildwood and 22 pence per milliliter for the Nuln Oil. This price difference is just based on the fact that the contrast medium pot is slightly bigger, so you get slightly more milliliters for your money. Now the most expensive thing on our list here is the Villainy ink. At 43 pence per milliliter, it is by far the most expensive, so it comes last here. Why does it cost so much more? I'm honestly not sure. It seems to do a fairly similar job. Apparently it's less toxic, but it's also more toxic than the oil paints, which are much cheaper, so make your own decisions here. So after comparing each of the washes on value, safety, shallow recesses and deep recesses, I give each of those a score, and then with those scores I've given them a final ranking. So in last place we've got Villainy ink. Now Villainy ink does have its uses, so if you want particularly dark recess shades, or if you want to preserve the original base colour once you've wiped off the surface, Villainy ink is actually quite a good product, but at more than twice the price of anything else on the list, it's definitely on the premium side of things. Now Streak and Grime comes in next on 4th place. It's good, it's effective, there's nothing wrong with it. It's great if you just want a pot that you can splash on without having to do any mixing. It's quite good value, but it's also the most toxic product on our list, which is why it comes in 4th place. In 3rd comes in Nuln Oil. Now Nuln Oil is well loved, well respected. It's incredibly safe, it's incredibly easy to use. So for beginners, it's definitely a good pick. And it doesn't tint the surface as much as Wildwood does. So for anything where you want to avoid any oils and enamels, and you also don't want to tint the surface colour quite so much, Nuln Oil is a great choice. Surprisingly, in 2nd place, we've got Wildwoods. Now, I wasn't originally going to include it in the comparison, but now I'm very much glad that I did. Obviously, if you don't want the surface tinting, then it's not an option for you. But if you don't mind that surface tinting, it actually does a particularly great job of colouring the recesses. Now, in 1st place comes our absolute cheapest option of the oil paints. They also are less toxic than the enamels. The oil paints are a great all-rounder. They give us a good amount of definition in our subtle recesses, but they also give us a good deep recess shade. They don't tint the surface too much. So all in all, the cheapest option actually provides the best all-round performance. Nuln Oil Shade and Wildwood are definitely the best for your shallow recesses. I really wish now that I thinned the Wildwood down a little bit more. I'll definitely be testing contrast paints in more detail in a future video. What kinds of washes do you use? Was there anything in the experiments that surprised you? Leave me a comment down below. Subscribe for honest, data-driven reviews. Thank you very much for watching.